In this video, I'm going to share what I think is the ideal copy length for Facebook headlines and primary text based on a little bit of data, and then I'm also going to show you a real-world example of why this matters. Okay, so first I'm going to share my 3 recommendations, and then I'm going to dive into how I came to this conclusion and then share an example with you. So recommendation number 1 is to have your Facebook headline copy length be no more than 44 characters. This is for both mobile and desktop devices. Recommendation number 2 is to keep your above the fold text to 82 characters or less. So this is the text that appears above that see more button before it gets cut off. And then recommendation number 3 is to have no line breaks in that first 82 characters of text. So let me now share how I came to these conclusions for copy length. I took a small sample size from both Facebook desktop ads and Facebook mobile ads, and I documented the following information. I took the entire primary text as well as the primary text character length. I also copied just the bit of primary text that appeared above the fold, as well as its copy length. I copied the headline and its copy length. I documented whether or not the headline was cut off, and I also included how many line breaks were included in that copy before the see more button. So this is when you hit the enter key and create a new paragraph. That counts as a line break. And then I did this for both Facebook and desktop. So 20 samples for desktop, 20 samples for mobile. And so here's what I discovered. If we look at first the above the fold copy, the bit that gets cut off with the see more button, there's some pretty interesting findings and differences between the desktop copy length and Facebook mobile copy length. On desktop, the shortest character length above the fold was 85 characters, the longest was 405 characters, and the average was 220 characters. What's interesting about desktop is that the copy length above the fold varied quite a bit. There wasn't really a consistent amount. And every single ad that I looked at least for my 20 ad sample, had 2 or more line breaks. So quite a bit of copy was shown above the fold on desktop, which is great. But mobile was quite a bit different. The shortest above the fold copy on mobile was 32 characters, the longest was 148, and the average was 85. But if we look at the mobile examples, we'll notice some pretty interesting patterns. There are a few, specifically 4, that had more than 100 characters of copy above the fold. But as you can see, most of them were pretty consistent at that 81 to 82 character limit. In fact, 12 of the 20 samples I took on mobile devices were either 81 or 82 characters above the fold. Also, on mobile devices, almost all of them had 0 line breaks. So if you hit the enter key, more than likely your ad was going to be cut off before that second line of copy. Okay, so I'm going to come back to this in a second and share an actual example and why this matters. But first, I want to share quickly the headline copy length as well. The most important thing here is the average headline length, which on desktop is 44 and on mobile is 40. We take a look at the mobile sample size. I have it ordered here from shortest to longest. You'll notice that there are quite a few in the 20 and 30 character length. And so I think those brought down the average a little bit. And then there are only a few that are kind of in the high 40s and 50 range. So I think that even though the average on mobile is 40, I think 44 is a pretty reasonable character count to aim for. Another thing that's interesting is whether or not the headlines were cut off. So you've probably seen ads before where the headline is too long that it gets cut off and just has 3 dots. Out of all 40 ad samples I took here, none of them were actually cut off in the headline. So this could suggest that Facebook simply doesn't cut off the text in the headline, but I think that this is in fact Facebook preferring ads that have shorter headlines and that provide a better user experience. So a shorter headline that's not cut off, the user can read the entire thing, it provides a better experience, therefore Facebook potentially favors that ad and serves it more. That's just my personal opinion. Okay, so now I want to show you an example of an ad that maybe isn't using these copy length considerations and how we could potentially improve it so that you can see why this is potentially important. So here's one of the ads I copied. It was on a desktop device, but I also captured a screenshot of it on mobile devices. So this is the desktop version, and then this is the mobile version. So you'll already notice the difference in copy length between the desktop and mobile. I want to focus mostly on the mobile because, as we know, most people are using Facebook on the mobile app. Most of your ad traffic is going to be served to people on mobile devices. So it's better to optimize for mobile devices because your copy is going to be shorter. That way, when it shows on a desktop device, it's already going to look pretty good anyways. So the above the fold text with this ad example is only 42 characters. which is interesting because it's quite a bit shorter than the 82 average we found earlier. Now the reason for this is because it has a line break right after that 42 character limit. So I think instead of having a line break at that 40 character point, if they had just expanded that first sentence, then more text would appear above the fold. And you can actually test this inside of your Facebook Ad Manager, which I'll show you in just a second. Next is their headline, which is 48 characters long. So this breaks our 44 character limit. You notice on mobile devices here, it's not actually cut off. So this is one of the exceptions. You'll notice that the copy includes a bunch of I's and L's, which are narrow characters. So I don't think Facebook has a character limit necessarily. It's more of a size limit. So it does kind of depend on your specific copy. Okay, so here's what I might consider changing with this ad to improve the user experience on the platform. First of all, I would focus on that above the fold text. I would expand that first line from 42 characters all the way up to the maximum of 82 characters, and that might look something like this. You'll notice that more copy is included above the text. There's more information that we can communicate. Also, I like to focus this piece of text above the fold on some of the key benefits and reasons that people should care about this particular offer. A lot of the times people are not going to click onto your ad or click the see more button. So this is really your only opportunity to communicate to many of the people who are actually being served your ad. So I think you should be more intentional with how you're using this above the fold copy. Next, and this is not really the purpose of this video, but I would consider using a square dimension image, a 1080 by 1080 pixel. That way it just takes up more real estate and it's more prominent when people are on their mobile device. Here's an example of what that could look like. And then lastly, the headline. So their headline already was within the character limit. It wasn't being cut off, but I would focus more on the benefits of attending this webinar than simply stating that texting is changing how local businesses operate, because to me, that doesn't really add much value. It doesn't entice me to click onto the ad. It's just stating a pretty obvious fact that I think most people understand. Whereas this new headline really drives home the benefit of attending this webinar, and it includes some emojis, which just makes it stand out a little bit more.